Good morning, Harmony. Good to see you all out. I think the rest of them are still at home bailing out their basements or something. Wasn't that some storm yesterday? That was incredible. The only thing worse is you could have been at the football game yesterday. Hudson was at the football game. I understand there was more players on the field than fans in the stands. It was that wet, but good to have you here this morning. A number of our men, if you're wondering why there's a bit of a gap, a number of our men are away at the men's retreat up in Tobermory, and so hopefully they didn't have as much rain as we did, but if they did, I guess wives get ready to throw some stuff in the dryer when they get back. Listen, just a few announcements for you as we get started this morning. First of all, just to mention that this Thursday is our final pickleball of the year, and so 9 o'clock this week, those that want to play, and we will finish off our pickleball season as we kind of shift into summer ministry mode. And then want to let you know about another Tobermory retreat coming up. This one, not yet. Baptist Women, thank you. No, go back, that's fine, I'll do that one first. Harmony Baptist Women, you're having your last meeting of the season June 1st at 2 p.m., so just put that on your calendars. Again, before we shift into summer mode, that is your last meeting. And then Tobermory, we have a youth retreat for our senior high students, and that's happening June 4 to 7. They'll be leaving June 4th after school and then up there for the weekend. If you haven't already signed up for that, you can talk to Sam Dummer. And Sam Dummer, if you don't know who that is, you'll see him this morning because Sam will be up here bringing the morning message. One of the things we are intentionally doing here at Harmony is trying to invest in young leadership, and we have 2 summer ministry interns this year, and one of those, Sam Dummer, will be bringing this morning's message, and I can't wait to see and hear for what the Lord has laid on his heart this morning as he shares with us. And then Harmony 55ers, you can sign up already. There's a sign-up sheet out in the foyer, and it is for our luncheon. It'll be our final luncheon until the fall, and that will be on June the 12th. And we have a man named Raj Kuna who will be here sharing with us from Masala Ministries. Masala Ministries is here in Hamilton, and it's about how to welcome our South Asian neighbors. So if you have, maybe some people have moved on your street and you want to understand their culture and how to reach out to them, that's what that presentation will be about that day, is just how to engage your South Asian neighbors and friends. And so again, you can sign up for that, and that'll be our last lunch until the fall. I was up yesterday, Val and I were in Newmarket as we said goodbye to Donna Foster and laid her to rest. We got to spend the day with her family, and it was raining there too. Made a wonderful drive up there and back, but I just wanted to share with you that her family just wanted to communicate back to you how deeply appreciative they were for the way you were a church family to their mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. Harmony was mentioned often in the service by the children, and how deeply they said, unlike any church their mom and dad had been a part of over the years, they really felt like this was their church home. And so again, we'll definitely miss Donna, but she's worshiping where we all someday hope to worship this morning. Let me open our service by sharing this call to worship. Come, let us gather in the presence of God, not because you and I have everything figured out, but because God is here. Come with your joy and your questions. Come with your faith and your weariness. Come with open hands and expectant hearts. The God who made us is present this morning. The God who loves us is near. The God who calls us is available to all who seek him. So let's worship together. Let's lift our voices. Let's turn our hearts toward our Lord. For where God's people gather in his name, he is with us. So come, let us worship the Lord together.
Please stand and join us as we sing together this morning. that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is a mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, who can be against me? For Jesus is nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. When all I see is a cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows. You win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God.
Good morning, everyone. Let's ramp up a bit because it's already rainy today. So, good morning, everyone. All right. Okay. My name is Daniel, and I serve as the Pastoral Ministry Intern here at Harmony. Now, let me take a moment to welcome everyone joining us today. We're glad you're worshiping with us, whether you're here in person or online. If you're new, please feel free to fill out this connection card in the pew so we can connect with you. And as we give today, may this giving be an expression of our worship to God. There are seasons in life when nothing seems to move, when prayers feel delayed, answers feel distant, and the night feels longer than expected. In those moments, it is easy to wonder if anything is changing at all. But God's timing is often quiet before it becomes clear. He works in ways we do not always see, and often in moments we do not expect. And when we remember that, our response is not fear, but of trust. Even in seasons of waiting, we can still place what we have in His hands and trust that He is faithful. And so, our giving becomes an act of hope. In the waiting, will we still place our trust in Him? As we give today, let it come not from fear or hurry, but from a quiet confidence in the God who is never late and who is still working even in the middle of the night. Let us pray. Our faithful Lord, you are never absent in our waiting, and you are never late in your timing. When we grow weary, teach us to trust you. When we grow anxious, remind us that you are still at work, even in ways we cannot yet see. May our giving today reflect that hope and trust. Use these gifts for your purposes, and let them bring help, truth, and encouragement to those in need. To you be glory, O Lord, who works in perfect wisdom and in perfect time. Amen. Amen.
There's peace that outlasts darkness, hope that's in the blood. There's future grace that's mine today, that Jesus Christ has won. So I can face tomorrow, for tomorrow's in your hands. All I need you will provide, just like you always have. I'm fighting a battle you've already won. No matter what comes my way, I will overcome. Don't know what you're doing, but I know what you've done. I'm fighting a battle you already won. There's mercy in the waiting, manna for today,
Good morning, everybody. Unfortunately, there is no children's moment today. Dave is not here, so kids up until high school are good to go. High school kids, we're staying in here today. Just for a minute there. Wait. Heather, I hope you don't mind I'm borrowing your... I just want to start today with a bit of a prayer, just to get things going. So if we could all close our eyes, please. Dear Lord, I just want to thank you that we can all come together on this rainy, cold day. I just thank you that we could all get here safe and that we can all enjoy each other's company. I want to lift some people up to you today. Donna Foster, as she came to meet with you, her family could use a little support as her children, Warren, Luann, and Kim, and grandchildren could really use some support through this time of sadness. And then Linnell has her daughter's friend is in the hospital right now and could really use some strength, and as she went through some pretty traumatic experiences. And then again, I want to raise up Pastor Susan as she continues with her struggle. We've heard that she had some chemotherapy yesterday that went really well, so we thank you for that, and we just pray that battle continues in a good way. And also Tom Watkinson, who is also struggling. We just pray that you have your hand of healing on him, or hand of comfort on him and Jane as they fight through that very anxious and very stressful circumstance. And then also there's a friend of Thomas who is also dealing with some physical health stuff. So we just pray that you can bring your hand onto him as well and help him through all of his struggles. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, everybody. So, good morning again. Whether you're here in the pews or online, at home watching, we're just glad you can join us today. Today we're going to be continuing our series on Esther, focusing on chapter 6. And it's really, this chapter is all about God's providence, or in other words, how God can sometimes use undesirable circumstances in unexpected ways. However, before I get too far into the text, I should probably introduce myself to those that don't know me. Some of you know me already, some in passing, and if you've been at this church long enough, you probably have memories of me in my diapers, sitting in the pews, or wreaking havoc in the Sunday school classrooms. Sorry, Cheryl, sorry, Vince. But regardless of our history together, you may be wondering why I'm up here doing the talking. I don't sound or look like Pastor Eldon, so it's a fair question. But for those that don't know me, as Pastor Eldon said earlier, my name's Samuel Dummer. I've been volunteering here with the youth group for a little under 2 years, and some of you may also remember me from serving at Boomerang Day Camp last year, and just generally helping out during the transition while we searched for Pastor Susan. This past January, I started attending McMaster Divinity College to complete my Master's of Divinity degree and to one day, hopefully, become ordained as a pastor. And because of our church's current circumstances, I was graciously offered a position to serve as a pastoral intern for the spring and summer months this year. So, which means that once or twice through the summer, you might see me up here preaching. So, surprise. Whether this goes well or poorly today, you all get to experience what the youth get to deal with every Friday night, and that's to try to stay awake while I talk. All jokes aside, I am very happy to have been given this honor, and I'm thankful for having the trust of the leadership team here at the church. While I may not be as polished or experienced a speaker as Eldon or Susan, I hope that God can still use my voice today to deliver his message through the text of Esther today. While you might think that all that was just a bunch of polite filler, in reality, I think words matter. And one of the first things I learned in university, in both history and English classes, was that when writers write, they're trying to direct us towards something. So even in a long introduction like the one I just gave, things can serve a purpose and an overall message. So in saying all of that, I want to start today with a question. And I know we're in a church and not a classroom, but I spend a lot of time with kids, so we'll have this die hard. I want you to raise your hand if you've ever felt overlooked. Like you were doing the right thing, but nothing ever seemed to change. Because really, that's the question that Esther 6 puts in front of us and answers today. Can God still be working when we cannot yet see it? So if you're following along in your Bibles, please turn to Esther chapter 6, as we're going to go from there. But while you're all doing that, I'm just going to get us caught up a little bit of where we are. We know that Esther has become queen after King Xerxes replaced Queen Vashti. We know that Mordecai has saved the king's life after discovering a plot against him. We also have met a man named Haman, who, through Pastor Eldon's description last week, if you were here, is a very pride-filled man and wants honor above anything else. And we also know that Esther, and he's also planning to kill all of the Jews because Mordecai refused to bow down to him. And we also know that Esther, having heard this plot, has invited them to a banquet, had one, and has now invited them to a second one. So, that's where we are now. So, 6 verse 1. That night the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. So, remember what I said earlier, that words matter? When it comes to writing and speaking, there's always some sort of purpose. So we read here that the king couldn't sleep. But if you actually look at more ancient texts, it's read, sleep fled him. So that fled him, fled is an active word. It's not simply he couldn't sleep. It was rest was defying him. So, we've heard that Esther is only one of 2 books that God isn't directly mentioned, but I don't think that means he's absent. I think it just means we need to look a little more close. Because even when God's not named, the story still moves under his direction. The narrator doesn't have to mention him by name. The words he chooses do all the heavy lifting. So today, we might have things like NyQuil, melatonin, or other medications to help us fall asleep. Xerxes didn't have any of that. Xerxes had books that he could read. And if you know anything about ancient Persia, they weren't like books of grandeur, like the philosophy of Rome and Greek or any of those things. They were actually very bureaucratic history books. They monitored all the king's decisions, all the boring stuff of running a government, and that's what he decided to have read. What I find very interesting about this is that he actually says that he had his own reign read to him. So I find that ironic that in order to be bored and fall asleep, he listened to his own history. But I digress. So as I said, the Persian Empire had formed a habit of documenting a lot of things, and it was mostly bureaucratic. Now, I was a history and political science major. I'm pretty sure that if I had a bunch of bureaucratic, minuscule details read to me at night, I'd fall asleep pretty quickly. And if I look out at you guys, I'm probably knocking a couple of you guys out just talking about it. But what makes this book choice in particular so important is that it actually leads us right into the next moment of the story. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. So at this point, the king discovers that it was actually Mordecai, a Jew, had saved his life and not been rewarded for it. So why does this matter? Because it goes against the well-known tradition of the Persian Empire. You see, in the Persian Empire at that time, it was a very honor-based society, and there was a title that was given to those that went above and beyond for the king, and it's a title called Orosangai. I know it's a big word, but it does translate roughly to benefactor of the king. So this was given to give you a high honor when you went above and beyond, and when the king realized that Mordecai had never gotten this honor, he saw that as a failure not only to his own reign, but on the tradition of Persia itself. So this has been 5 years, roughly, since Mordecai's act. And Mordecai has had to watch that same title, or at least the benefits of that same title, be given to a guy like Haman, who's trying to now use that title in order to plot against him and the rest of the Jews. So the next verse goes, the king said, "Who is in the court?" Sorry, I lost myself there. The king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole he had set up for him. His attendants answered, "Haman is standing in the court." So this is kind of where the passage starts to take a bit of a comedic turn. Haman, and it's the very same Haman who is plotting to kill Mordecai, as it says, has arrived early. So we know now that he's early, which means he probably wasn't there at that time every day. He went there early specifically to talk to the king about killing Mordecai on a pole that he made specifically for that purpose, which also becomes a little ironic when a little later in the series that I think Pastor Alvin will touch on next week. But we know that the king calls him into the chambers. Now, Haman doesn't know why he's being called into the chambers. He's unaware that Xerxes has been rustling and rolling, trying to sleep all night. He's unaware that he had just heard about Mordecai's plot, or finding out of the plot. And so to him, he gets to work one morning, he's there for a purpose, and right away the king's like, hey, bring Haman to me. Haman's probably thinking to himself, oh, I'm an important guy. I get called in right away. And this view of himself is highlighted even further when we look at the next verse, which reads, when Haman entered, the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Now, Haman thought to himself, well, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So we see that Haman, one of the king's top advisors, is so focused on himself and his own desires that he automatically assumes that any honor the king has to give must be to himself. It didn't matter that he was already wealthy. It didn't matter that he was already prime minister of Persia. It didn't matter that he was already considered the king's right-hand man in all the decisions. The only thing that mattered to him was that he believed he was getting even more honor and acknowledgement. A man obsessed with his own pride and power is never satisfied with what he has. There's always a burning desire for more. So what makes this next part so comedic is his answer is very clearly something he thought about before. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment idea. This is a moment in which Haman had likely been dreaming about for a very long time. With no hesitation, Haman gives a detailed account of how he believes a man should receive honors in Persia from the king. So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn and a horse the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man and the king delights to honor and lead him on the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. You see, Haman describes this elaborate parade for the man the king delights to honor, a phrase he repeats multiple times. And I think that's where the narrator is trying to tell us something else here, because repetition is a tool used to emphasize importance. By having Haman repeat these words to Xerxes more than once, we're shown just how important this honor was to him. With the assumption that he was the one to be honored, Haman spared no expense. He wanted a spectacle. He virtually suggested that the person being honored be made king for a day. Wearing the king's robe, riding the king's horses, and being proclaimed throughout all the city of how worthy they were of praise is just like Haman wanting to be as respected as the king. Now, to his surprise, the king loved every part of the idea. However, it didn't quite go the way that Haman expected. In verse 10, it reads, go at once, the king commanded Haman. Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended. You see, at this point, I can only imagine the look on Haman's face. I mean, here he was, he wanted everything for himself, and now he finds out that actually it's not for you, it's for the guy you're trying to kill. So here we have a guy that hates Mordecai, and in turn all of the Jews, and a guy who had come up with this elaborate parade thinking he was about to have the best day of his life, and that he was not only going to be honored, but he was going to be able to talk the king into letting him kill Mordecai that day. And instead, it's completely different. In fact, not only was killing Mordecai now off the table, but the king orders it to be Haman to now dress Mordecai in robes, ride him around the city, and preach about how great and worthy of praise he is. It's funny how that works. When we allow our own ego and our own pride to take over our thoughts, we can often miss what's happening right in front of us. You see, we can often fall into this trap of trying to believing that everything we do should be glorified, and we expect it'll be recognized right away. But in reality, I think many of us find ourselves more like Mordecai, saving the king's, constantly doing what's right, constantly helping others, and never getting anything in return. As I said earlier, it had been almost 5 years from Mordecai saving the king's life to getting any sort of recognition for it. After 5 years, I can pretty much assure you that Mordecai likely wasn't expecting any sort of recognition. I mean, would you? Think about it. If you were at work and you did something above and beyond, we usually want to see some recognition, but we don't always get that. And then furthermore, 5 years later, are you still going to expect recognition for that act you did 5 years ago? Probably not. But it didn't affect Mordecai's life. In fact, we're not even told in the story if it even crossed his mind. He just continued doing what he felt was right. So the passage of focus today ends with Haman doing as the king wishes. He dresses Mordecai in royal robes, parades him through the city, and declares the honors bestowed on him from the king. After which, he returns home to his wife and friends, embarrassed and ashamed. You see, verse 12 goes as far as stating that Haman hurried home with his head covered. He was so ashamed that he felt he could not even show his face. His friends and his wife saw the writing on the wall before he did. Haman was so wrapped up in his own ego that he failed to see what was coming. Using yet another narrative tool, the tool of foreshadowing, we get the following line from Haman's wise men and wife. Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief and told Zeresh's wife and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife Zeresh said to him, "Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. You see, what we begin to see here is a theme that ends up running throughout most of Scripture. Pride leads to humiliation, and humility leads to exaltation. Haman spends this entire chapter chasing glory, recognition, and honor for himself, only to be brought low. Mordecai, meanwhile, simply continues doing what is right, and without demanding any sort of praise. And in God's timing, he's lifted up. Jesus speaks about this same kind of reversal in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 14. When a bunch of people are at a banquet, they're all fighting with each other, trying to get the best seat at the table or the highest honors. And Jesus looks at them all and says, those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Haman wanted the highest seat at the table. Mordecai was content just sitting at the gate. And ultimately, we see the greatest reversal in the story of the gospel itself. The cross looked like defeat. It looked like death had won. The disciples thought all hope was lost, but through what appeared to be tragedy, God was bringing salvation. What looked hopeless on Friday became victory on Sunday. So it's important because Esther 6 is not just about irony or dramatic storytelling. It reminds us that God often works in ways that we don't expect. And sometimes he's doing his greatest work when we think nothing is happening at all. So when we look at this passage, it would be easy to explain everything as a string of good luck for Mordecai or bad luck for Haman. But let's take a second and just piece it all together. First, we have sleep fled from King Xerxes. Second, we have Xerxes heard of Mordecai's good deed that same day. Third, Haman arrived early at the court, something he didn't usually do. Fourth, we have Xerxes, hearing Haman was there, calls him into the chamber. Haman assumes he's the one being honored and designs some elaborate celebration. And finally, the king approves the plan, but applies it to Mordecai, the very man Haman was plotting against. You see, any one of these moments, taken on its own, could be explained as coincidence or ordinary circumstance. But when we take a step back and we look at the bigger picture, it becomes harder to ignore that something more is unfolding. We see God at work. He may not always be announced directly, but he is present in the way the details all come together. And that's where I want to return to something I said at the very beginning of the sermon. You see, I shared a bit of my story earlier, but the truth is the bigger picture is much more than a series of random events. When I look back, I can often see how I generally lived more like Haman than I did Mordecai. I was constantly chasing recognition and sometimes pushing ahead of what I felt or what God may have been shaping in my life. Now, I want to preface this with saying I don't want to over-spiritualize every moment as if every closed door or delay is automatically some elaborate message, but I do believe that God is able to work through the details of our lives even when we can't yet see what he's doing. So let me tell you a little more of my story, because I do think it fits. For almost 10 years after high school, I worked in construction, first in plumbing, then electrical. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much more responsibilities I was given, I was always feeling like I was chasing for recognition that never quite came. And then in 2020, I began experiencing episodes of vertigo. Now, I don't know if any of you guys have experienced vertigo before, but when you're working in heights and electrical, getting the spins while standing 12 feet on a ladder is not usually the safest thing. So after a couple episodes and a couple times of almost falling, I lost my job. And in that transition, I found it difficult to find another job in trades when you have tradespeople that don't necessarily want to take on that extra risk. So it led me to going back to school, something I hadn't done since high school. And that season of massive life change eventually led our family to coming back towards the church with a gentle shove from my wife, Amanda. And here things tend to look a little more too coincidental. You see, during our search, bouncing from church to church a little bit, Amanda quietly prayed to herself that if God was if God was pointing us to the right church, that they would play a Phil Wickham song. It was just a way of kind of reassuring herself. And when you know it, on our very first Sunday here, not only did they play one, but they played two in worship. And actually, they played two today. So that was kind of interesting to me. But we stayed. And not long after that, Pastor Eldon was standing right here, asking for some support with the youth. I found myself volunteering as a way to give back to God because I felt it was definitely something I had been neglecting for a long time. And then only a couple months later, we're doing a retreat at Muskoka Woods, and someone asked me if I had ever considered youth ministry full-time. And at the time, I kind of laughed at them. I was like, no, I'm like part-time, maybe volunteer, helping out, but I don't think it'd be anything I could do full-time. But the question lingered even after we left. And again, it was only a little bit after that when Pastor Sergio announced that he was leaving for an opportunity elsewhere. So now, all of a sudden, I was the leader and face for the youth group, something I hadn't expected to be just a year before that. And I just felt like, something was calling me there. And then I got the opportunity to serve with Boomerang last summer, and it just everything combined ended up leading me to the feeling of needing to apply to McMaster Divinity College. I don't know what it was. I just felt like I was called to do that. So I did. And I honestly didn't expect to get in. I was a good student, but I wouldn't necessarily call myself a great student. I told God that I would apply, but I kind of put it in his hands as to what would happen next. And then after months of waiting to hear back and not hearing back, I kind of assumed that I had gotten my answer. So when I graduated my undergrad in December, I started applying to other jobs. And it was like less than a week after I handed out my first couple applications, I woke up one morning to an email from McMaster Divinity telling me I got in and that I'd be starting in January. So now here I am, speaking at the pulpit, and not because everything followed a perfectly clear script, but because of a series of moments that, looking back, seemed to form a pattern. And again, I'm not saying that every moment in life is some sort of divine sign or that we should be going and looking for hidden messages in every tiny detail. Sometimes burnt toast is simply burnt toast. If we only zoom in one piece of the story, it can feel like a bunch of randomness anyway. But when we step back, we can sometimes have our eyes open to how God can shape our lives and write a much larger story through ordinary and even unexpected circumstances. And that's why I think it matters to trust him with what we cannot yet make sense of. For Mordecai, it was 5 years before recognition came. For me, it's been a long process of learning to loosen my grip and to trust where God was leading. And for you guys, I don't know exactly what season you're in, but I do believe that God is not absent for it. So this week, if you find yourself lying awake with worry, do not assume that nothing is happening. Pray, release the situation to God. Keep doing what is right. Keep showing up at the gate like Mordecai, because God is not sleeping, and he's never out of moves. Thanks.
We invite you to stand and join us as we sing in closing this morning.
You never stop working. Even when I can't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Even when I can't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. Light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
my benediction is not original, but from 2 Thessalonians. Now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. The Lord be with you, all of you.